So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for this uh, event, the first of its kind, the New Caller Generation Report. So, I must give you a little bit of a genesis as to why did this thought come, where did it come from, and why are we even talking about it today? And why? So, Quess, as you know, is 15 plus years in the making. This is our 16th year, 6 years post the IPO of the organization. But most importantly, last year in November, Quess crossed a landmark of 500,000 people deployed across all its thousands of customers in different projects in India and overseas. When we crossed this momentous milestone of the 500,000 people, we thought we must hear the voice of these 500,000 people. And we came out with a 500K social impact report from Quess. As we presented that report to media, to governments, to policy advocacy committees, and to the various stakeholders, including our customers, many of them asked us a question that Quess is talking about the 500K people who are already 500,000 families, which are already part of your formal workforce. But have you ever spoken to the informal workforce? Have you ever asked what is their aspiration? Have you ever checked what is their voice and what is their dream? And that's what brought us to the New Caller Generation Report. Together with my leadership team at Quess, we embarked on this journey from December. We got an external research agency which would do the entire research for us. And that's how, during the period of last year, 2022, to January and February of this year, is how this report was made. Let me take you into the context of this report with the first page itself. So India has a little over 425, 430 million workforce in a country of 1.4 billion people. Of this, majority of our workforce of nearly 350 million are people in the unorganized sector, which is the gig, the platform workers, the domestic workers, the casual daily wagers, and the various other segments that you can talk about. Within that, almost 40% or nearly 125 million also hail from the MSME segment. And on an average, 63 million MSMEs have nearly 1.5 personnel deployed with them per MSME company. The women in the workforce across the board, as estimated by the labor force participation, is a little over 30%. But when it is seen in context of the formal workforce women, it comes to low 20%. And that was one of the context which started to make us feel that when 85% of India is in informal, we should also have a dipstick or a report or a thought process of what these people think. So as we headed into this conversation, we chose 14 cities. If you notice, these cities were primarily divided into two segments. Top seven were the metros, the Bangalore, the Chennai, the Delhi, the Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and Pune. And then seven, which are the aspirational cities or also part of the tier two part of India, which is Ahmedabad, Baroda, Coimbatore, Indore, Lucknow, Ludhiana, and Nasik. We wanted to cover the north, the south, the center, the west, the east, all parts of India, and we've tried our best to do that. We have close to 4,200 respondents, men and women, from all these towns who have spoken to us right up to January 23, since when we put together this report into its shape and form that we have today. So let me dwell into the report itself and take you through some of the key findings of this report. So the most important aspect or the most important finding of this report is 93% of the informal employees claimed that if they were offered a formal job which comes with healthcare benefits and a formal agreement as opposed to a higher salary without a contract, they would take the job. This is counterintuitive to what we've been hearing in the last 75 years. In the last 75 years, one, we've been hearing is that majority of the people at the base of the pyramid, at the start of their career, would much rather have a higher net take home, and they would not want any form of social security, healthcare benefits, and the others. The second, we've been thinking that people in the informal segment probably do not understand the rules of the engagement when it comes to formal employment and formal contract, and they don't understand what are the benefits which a formal employment brings in. So we dwell further into it, and we asked the question: do you believe that you have a better chance of improving your lifestyle and that of your family if you have a formal job as opposed to one without a contract, which is informal? Let me take a moment to explain what informality means. The countries all across G20 and even in India, there are different ways to describe what is formal and what is informal. Our understanding of informal is very simple. It is an employment or a work that you have without a formal contract, without a written document, without financial inclusion, where you can be assured of salary on a particular day of each month in your bank, without having any form of social security, namely ESIC, EPFO, medical insurance, gratuity, maternity, pension, and other such benefits. But more importantly, it is also an employment where you may or may not have the skills to move up your career, and you do not have enhancement of career over the 35 or 40 years that most of us generally work. So when we ask this question, that do you have a better chance of a lifestyle for yourself and your family with a formal job, again see how the two cohorts are speaking in almost unanimity. The formal workers said 96% of them agree and strongly agree to this, whereas the informal workers at 97% finally said yes, they strongly agree about this and strongly agree to this, which means that there aren't very many differences in the minds of both the formal and the informal players. Let's dwell a little further into this now. As we went into our next question, we said, what are the objectives according to you that would help you associated with a job? 51% of the informal employees said, yes, it's about earning money and making a living. But while that is the highest for the people from informal, in the formal workforce, that was about 36% of the people who said that. But more importantly, 15%, almost 15% each in the informal also said that it is to build a career, it is to learn a new skill, and then 10% each almost said to contribute to society and community in a meaningful way and to support my passion and interest. So what this really tells us is that when people look at formality and a job with a contract, while 50% of them are clearly saying it's for money and for a living, it another 50% are also having reasons like building a career, learning new skills, contributing to community, and above all, contributing to their own passion and interest. So, as we went with the same question across the age cohorts, you'll see it in the next slide. As far as the age cohorts is concerned, this trend is almost percolating across the four buckets. We divided the age cohorts into the early workers, which is 18 to 25, 26 to 35, 36 to 45, and above 45. Mind you, ladies and gentlemen, these are also the age brackets when significant change to your personal and professional life takes place. At 18 to 25, you generally start a career, you are by yourself. At 26 to 35, you generally get married and start a family, and you start having young kids, and you have to put them through education. At 36 to 45, two dramatic changes happen in your life. Your kids go to senior education, which is high school or middle school or beyond in some cases. And also at this time is when you have aged parents, both in-laws as well as parents. And then above 45 is a time when you start thinking about your own pension, your own retirement, and you start contributing towards that. But if you notice across these four cohorts, almost between 45 to 57%, while they said making money and a living is important, in each of these segments, skilling was really important. To build a career was really important. The point I'm trying to make here, or the point we are trying to drive here, is that people, when they come to formal work, they understand that you are learning skills with every passing year. And thanks to those skills and those experiences, your entire career progresses. Where you start at the age of 18 or 20 is not where you end at the age of 55, 58, or 60. You progress with time, and that's the important aspect that we are trying to build on. As we move to the next data point on this report, we asked a question: what is your perception of formal work? And 97% of the informal employees agreed that there is more opportunity for growth in terms of salary in a formal job with a contract as compared to without. So as long as we've been, in the last 75 years of India, we've believed that a majority of Indians are not in the job market or in the labor market because they want to be self-employed entrepreneurs. Let's say they want to be gig workers, or they want to be vegetable vendors at the grassroots, or they want to be agriculture workers and all. This destroys that myth to a great extent, because in your 35 or 40 years of your career, it is now understood by everybody that 97% of the population believes that if you're in a formal contract, you also progress with time. We went further and said, do you believe there is more opportunity? And in the informal segment, almost 96% said yes, which was both strongly agree and agree put together. And then we said, do you believe there is more opportunity for growth in terms of professional skills in a formal job with a contract than a one without? And again, you would say informal workers said emphatically yes at 86%, while formal workers said 92%. What this again tells us is that as they earn and as they learn, as they progress over the years, people move upwards. Let me give you an example. If a factory worker were to go into an informal environment, chances are that most likely in the 15, 20, 35, or 40 years of his life, there would be very limited opportunity to move upwards and to grow with the skills that they acquire, to learn new machinery or new mechanization, and to get the benefits of the fruit of his or her labor. But when the same factory worker joins, let's say, a formal environment, not only does the factory worker acquire the skills and the compensation, but every few years the factory worker moves upwards depending on what kind of output they are giving. From a worker, they could become a supervisor. From a supervisor, they could become a line in charge. From a line in charge, they could become a shift in charge. From there, they could become an assistant production manager at the factory. And someday, who knows, 35 or 40 years later, they could be taking a sweet retirement, being the plant head himself or herself. And that is progression, which I think is clearly understood. We must also remember one more thing. This cohort of population which is coming to work today is not the ones who were born when India became independent in 1947. These are the millennials who have joined the workforce, and they are 18 years, 20 years, 22 years since 2000. It's the change of the century. Since 2000, they have seen digital technology, they have seen mobile phones, they have seen the advent of digital and the impression that that digital has made on their minds. And you'll see this in the subsequent slides as well. So as we spoke to the employees, we said, what kind of benefits are you looking at? And 80% of the informal employees expected their employers to give them ESIC and medical benefits. So this was a multiple choice question. We asked this to both the formal as well as the informal workers, that if you had multiple choices, what would you really want your employers to give you? What form of security? The largest was ESIC. And ESIC means it's not just medical benefits to you, but it's medical benefits to your immediate dependents. And this dependence extends to your parents. That's a very big, point which is coming across. The second important point which is coming across is provident fund, because India as a nation does not have pension scheme which works across the board, and provident fund works brilliantly as that social security coverage when you retire, to take care of life post retirement. And as an average Indian is living beyond the age of 70 now, way more than at the time of independence, which was close to 45. Most Indians today have to see 15, 20, or even 25 years or more after their retirement. The third came obviously life insurance. The fourth then came as paid leave. This is again counterintuitive. We would have thought that informal workers don't understand what's called paid leave, but I'm sure with everybody on this call understanding paid leave, the informal workers are also expecting the same. And then came disability insurance. We then took this question by the different age brackets. And you will notice that ESIC was the largest call out in the age bracket of 25 to 34. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time when you start your family, you get married and you have the first child. That's the time when people are expecting that ESIC would be hugely beneficial. And if you see the other aspects of Provident Fund and the others, you would see that it has increased with 35 to 44 years of age bracket. And likewise, if you see the other segments, you'll feel the highest is towards the life insurance and paid leaves. Let's move to the next slide, and we focus a bit on women and their thoughts on healthcare and security. When we asked, the people out there, the young population out there coming to work, that what do you feel about the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact? 38% of women and 29% of men said that they believe that the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted an importance for job security. When we further asked if your employer offered you a job with a health benefit and a formal agreement, as opposed to a higher salary without a contract, would you likely take it? An overwhelming 63% of the women said in the informal worker said yes, while 28% of the men said. This one shows that women are more concerned about their health, family health, and probably for them, the health of children, the health of aging parents is extremely, extremely important. And that's a void that they are trying to fulfill. We must also remember that when India saw the COVID-19 pandemic and we saw the lockdown, unfortunately, it was the informal workers who were found walking back to their villages, in many cases without any food and water, in many cases going back without any form of social security and losing all their livelihood, losing all their savings, only to come back a few months later and start life all over again. I think this is that impact which has told women that if you were to look at the life with a formal worker, and we all are aware of that, we know how much our employers have taken care of the benefits during that time, and those benefits in every context, in every aspect. We also asked a question: if a job seeker without a formal contract was looking for formal employment, what do you think would be the most likely cause for this? Very interestingly, people said generally more aware of the advantages of formal employment because of technology. That came as one very large answer. The second one was prestige. When you're in a formal employment, you can talk about it, you can talk about it to your community, your family, and the others. The third, obviously, was that COVID highlighted the job security, what I was just mentioning right now. And fourth, obviously, is that now their children are educating them about the advantages of formal work. Please let us not forget, these are the last 20, 23 years when India has seen the maximum impact of digital technology, maximum impact of percolation of mobile technology out there. Indians are getting educated in the 90s. I mean, 90% and more of the Indians are today getting educated. Hence, their aspirations are also changing. It's not the same India which was 75 years ago, and it will never not be the same India 5 or 10 years later. So, as we worked further and dwelled into this uh, one more layer, and we asked a question, we got a response that when people are unable to shift to a formal job without an appointment letter and a contract, what do you think could be the top reason? While 62% of the men in informal and 55% of the women in informal said external reference and recommendations. The second was the lack of job and not having enough qualifications for getting that job. And the third aspect was not having the contacts within the employers and potential employers. Now, this lack of having an information or a reference to get to the formal job, or a lack of education or a lack of awareness, brings us to the most important aspect of what we do as an intermediary in the labor market. Quess as an intermediary in the labor market exactly reduces this fiction. We have often heard the point that enough employers say they don't get enough employees for quality work, and enough employees say they aren't enough jobs. And that is what Quess is every day trying to address with its reach, with its recruiters and mobilizers, and above all, with technology now. As we move further into the next segment of, you know, what do we hold dear to us and responsibility hereafter? So I think this could be partly divided in two segments and two cohorts. One, we must understand the India of today, the aspirational India of this new India at 75 is an India which is looking at benefits which are not just reserved for the formal employees. This is an India which is looking at healthcare. This is an India which is looking at Provident Fund. This is an India which is looking at social security. This is an India which is looking at skills. This is an India which is looking at career enhancement. This is an India which is looking at opportunities for the informal workers as well. This is also an India which is asking a question that after 75 years, why have we reserved the benefits of social security to certain cohorts? Our ESIC kicks in only after 10 workers. Our EPFO kicks in only after 20 workers. That takes away the entire domestic worker segment. That takes away everybody in the MSME segment. That takes away people in the construction industry. That takes away people in goods and transportation sector. That takes away people in the informal gig employment, or it takes away people in the daily wager segment. Can the new India of the next 25 years, as we head towards India at 100, be a new India where we can percolate all these benefits of skilling, career enhancement, and job security and social security to every Indian? Can we give them the opportunity of what it means with formalization? And can we then ask them the question, which side of the two elements do you want to be on? I think this is a conversation which we will continue to lead with policymakers, with stakeholders, with various state and the union government as well. I'm also impressed by the fact that the government has finally put together something called the e-Shram portal. And today, in the first 12 months of putting that e-Shram portal together, the government of India, in its own admission and recognition, has accepted that 290 million or 29 crore Indians who live in informality today have already registered themselves. Now, the question and the execution should be, what do we do for this 29 crore Indians? What kind of tools do we aid them with? Do we give them more skilling? Do we bring them to large employers? Do we show them the benefits of formalization and career enhancement? At the same time, can we ask the large employers that how much of your workforce are you taking from the informal segment? How many of your people that you hire next time around come from the eShram portal? How many of the transitions have you created to first time EPFO and first time ESIC and first time maternity benefits and healthcare benefits? Can that become also an impediment on the large employers? And at the same time, can it be a benefit that the government can give? Today, the government spends no less than 65,000 crores on Manrega. It's a support which is given to landless workers who have no other work and who are looking for benefits. But mind you, that is only for 115 days in a year at 205 rupees. That means the only corpus that is given to you is less than 30,000 rupees of combined earnings in a year. An average worker today earns a lot more than that in the formal segment. So, in the India of tomorrow, can we have a policy of transitioning these e-Shramiks or these people from Manrega to the formal workforce, reduce the subsidy burden on the informality, but support and increase the support and the subsidy for formalization? And can that be a drive that India takes in the next 25 years? The second thing we would like to work with policymakers and various stakeholders and the government is on women participation at the workforce. Quess is proud to have over 91,000 women that work for Quess at its customers' locations. But that mirrors very similar to India's own situation of women in workforce, which is in the low 20s. Women otherwise as a gender in society are 49.6%. Why should we not have at least 40% of women coming to workforce and not 20% women coming to workforce? And if that were to happen, then this missing gender that we have at work also adds to economic benefits, and this also adds to the overall per capita GDP for each one of them, and above all for the GDP of India. We are at $3.7 trillion after 75 years. Absolutely everybody is bullish that India will go towards the 7 and 8 trillion by the end of this decade. And as we go there, can we take more Indians along with us? Is the path that we are looking at. So, thank you very much. Wanted to share this with you today.